What if I told you that 7 foods sitting quietly in your pantry right now could be slowly turning toxic and draining hundreds, even thousands of dollars from families who thought they were prepared? You sealed them tight, you stored them carefully, and still, they failed. Here is the truth no one talks about. Food does not just expire. It betrays you silently through oxygen, moisture, light, and hidden oils that rot from the inside. Today, I am going to reveal the 7 pantry staples that go bad far faster than you think and how to stop losing money before it is too late. Subscribe now, because this very story, may restore your faith in miracles and show you that preparedness done right is not about fear. It is about peace of mind and taking back control before disaster strikes. I'm about to show you the 7 foods sitting in your pantry right now that are quietly turning toxic. And if you've spent any serious money building your food storage, you need to hear this, because I've personally thrown away hundreds of dollars worth of supplies that went bad. And I've seen preppers lose thousands. Let me start with something that shocked me back in 2014. I opened a 5-gallon bucket of rolled oats I'd stored just 18 months earlier, perfectly sealed, oxygen absorbers, everything done right. And the smell that hit me was unmistakable, sour, bitter, rancid. 3/4 of that bucket went straight into the trash. That was the moment I realized that doing food storage right isn't just about sealing things up and forgetting them. Some foods have a shelf life that's way shorter than you think. And if you don't know which ones, you're setting yourself up for a very expensive lesson. I bought the wrong foods, stored them the wrong way, and learned the hard way what actually works for ordinary people with limited space and tight budgets. Today, I'm walking you through the 7 foods that spoil faster than most preppers realize, why they go bad, how to spot the warning signs, and most importantly, what you can do right now to stop wasting money. Here's the thing that most people don't understand about food storage. The enemies aren't just time and temperature, it's oxygen, it's light, it's moisture, and it's the natural oils inside certain foods that oxidize and turn rancid faster than you'd believe. Rancid food isn't just unpleasant. It actually destroys vitamins in your body, particularly B vitamins and vitamin E, the very nutrients these healthy foods are supposed to provide in the first place. Let's start with number 1. And this is the big one that catches almost everyone. Brown rice. If you're storing brown rice thinking it's the healthy prepper staple, you need to listen carefully. Brown rice has a bran layer that's packed with oils, and those oils go rancid incredibly fast. We're talking 3 to 6 months in your pantry under the best conditions. That's it. Even if you vacuum seal it, even if you use oxygen absorbers, the clock is ticking because those oils are already inside the grain itself. White rice will last you 30 years when stored properly. Brown rice won't make it past 6 months unless you take specific action. The moment brown rice goes rancid, you'll know it. It develops this sour, oily smell, almost like old crayons or stale nuts, and the taste becomes bitter and unpleasant. But here's the scary part. Sometimes you won't notice until you cook it. And by then, you've wasted your time, your fuel, and your ingredients. So, what do you do if you want to store brown rice? You got 3 options. 1. Store it in your freezer in airtight containers where it'll last 12 to 18 months. 2. Only buy small amounts. You'll rotate through quickly, maybe a month's worth at most. 3. And this is what I recommend. Store white rice for long-term and supplement with brown rice that you buy and use fresh when times are normal. I know white rice gets a bad rap for being less nutritious, but a 30-year shelf life beats a 6-month shelf life any day of the week when you're actually planning for emergencies. Same principle applies to brown rice flour. If you're storing whole wheat flour or any flour that contains the bran and germ, those oils are going to turn on you. White flour lasts. Whole grain flours don't. Not without refrigeration or freezing. Store what lasts. Supplement with what's fresh when you can. Number 2, and this one surprised me when I first learned about it. Nuts and seeds. Almonds, walnuts, peanuts, sunflower seeds. All those healthy protein and fat sources we think of as shelf-stable. They're not. Not really. Nuts are loaded with unsaturated fats, and unsaturated fats oxidize, which means they go rancid at room temperature in your pantry. Most nuts will go bad in just 1 to 2 months once opened, even unopened. If they've been sitting on a grocery store shelf or in your pantry exposed to heat and light, they're deteriorating fast. I used to buy those big Costco containers of mixed nuts thinking I was being smart, buying in bulk, saving money, and then I'd open them 3 months later and half of them tasted off. Bitter, almost soapy, completely unpleasant. That's rancidity. And once it starts, there's no going back. You can't cook it out. You can't season it away. That food is done. The solution is cold storage. Keep your nuts and seeds in the fridge where they'll last about 6 months. Or better yet, keep them in the freezer where they'll stay good for a year or more. If you're building a prepper pantry and you want nuts for protein and calories, buy them in smaller quantities and rotate through them, or commit to freezer storage. Don't let them sit at room temperature for months thinking they're fine just because they're in a sealed container. Here's a practical tip I learned from trial and error. If you buy a big container of nuts, immediately portion them out into smaller freezer bags, label them with the date, and freeze them. Pull out one bag at a time as you need it. This keeps the bulk of your supply protected while you're working through smaller amounts. Number 3, cooking oils. This is where I see preppers make huge mistakes because we assume that oil in a sealed bottle is basically indestructible. It's not. Most vegetable oils, canola oil, corn oil, even olive oil, they all have relatively short shelf lives once opened. And some don't last long, even when sealed. Vegetable oil and canola oil last about a year when sealed and stored properly. Once you open them, you're looking at 6 months maximum. And that's if you keep them in a cool, dark place away from heat and light. I made the mistake early on of storing extra bottles of vegetable oil right next to my stove. Convenient for cooking, but terrible for storage, because every time I cooked, that oil was getting blasted with heat, light, and temperature fluctuations, all of which speed up oxidation. Olive oil is even trickier. Extra virgin olive oil starts to degrade after about 2 years, even in perfect conditions. And if it's exposed to light and heat, it'll go rancid in a matter of months. That's why good olive oil comes in dark bottles and why you should never store it near your stove or in direct sunlight. When cooking oil goes rancid, it develops an off smell, sometimes like crayons or old paint, and the taste is harsh and unpleasant. More importantly, rancid oils are harmful to your health. They create free radicals in your body and destroy fat-soluble vitamins. So, what's the solution for preppers? Store oils that actually last. Coconut oil is one of the best choices because it's over 90% saturated fat, which makes it incredibly stable. Properly stored coconut oil can last 2 years or more, and refined coconut oil can last even longer. It stores as a solid at room temperature, which helps protect it, and it has antimicrobial properties that make it naturally resistant to spoilage. Another option that almost nobody talks about is ghee, which is clarified butter. Ghee has been used for thousands of years in hot climates, precisely because it doesn't need refrigeration and lasts a very long time. We're talking a year or more at room temperature in a sealed container, even longer in the fridge. When cooking oil goes rancid, buy them in small quantities. Keep them sealed until you need them, and store them in the coolest, darkest place you have, ideally a basement or interior closet, never near a heat source. And for your main long-term storage, focus on coconut oil and ghee. They're the only cooking fats that will truly last without refrigeration. Number 4, whole grain flours. I already touched on this with brown rice flour, but it's worth spending more time on because this is a mistake that costs preppers serious money. Whole wheat flour, oat flour, almond flour, coconut flour, any flour that contains oils from the bran germ or from the nut itself. These flours have a short shelf life. Whole wheat flour lasts 3 to 8 months in the pantry. Almond flour and coconut flour, which are loaded with oils, might only last 2 to 3 months at room temperature before they start to go rancid. Meanwhile, white all-purpose flour can last years when properly stored in an airtight container. The prepper mistake here is assuming that because whole wheat is more nutritious, it's better for storage. But what good is nutrition if the food goes bad and you have to throw it away? If you want whole grains in your storage, store wheat berries, the whole unground kernels, and grind them into flour as you need them. Wheat berries stored with oxygen absorbers in sealed buckets will last 30 years or more because the oils are protected inside the intact grain. If you don't have a grain mill, and let's be honest, most people don't, then store white flour for long-term and supplement with small amounts of whole wheat flour that you buy fresh and keep in your freezer. I keep a small container of whole wheat flour in my freezer for baking, and I keep buckets of white flour and wheat berries for true long-term storage. Best of both worlds. By the way, speaking of making the most of your food storage, I know how overwhelming this can all feel when you're just getting started or when you're trying to do it on a tight budget. That's exactly why I put together a free guide for you. It's called How to Turn $50 into a 90-Day Food Supply. I created this because back when I started prepping in 2012, I didn't have extra money lying around. I had to figure out how to build security for my family without breaking the bank. This guide gives you the exact $50 shopping list that can feed your family for over 90 days with specific brands and prices included. You'll also get 37 essential preparedness items most people never think to stockpile. And number 23 on that list is something that honestly surprised me when I first learned about it. But now, I make sure I always have it on hand. The guide also includes storage tricks that work in any home or apartment, even small spaces. Emergency meals you can make with zero cooking fuel or electricity, and step-by-step guidance for scaling up from 1 week to 3 months with confidence. It's completely free. I'm not asking for a credit card or anything like that. I just want to help you avoid the expensive mistakes I made when I was starting out. The link to grab your free copy is in the description below and in the pinned comment. Just let me know where to send it, and you'll have it in your inbox in about 60 seconds. All right, let's keep going, because we've got 3 more foods that spoil fast. Number 5, ground spices. Now, spices don't technically spoil in the sense that they'll make you sick, but they lose their potency fast, especially ground spices. And if you're storing bland staples like rice and beans, thinking you'll spice them up later, you need to understand this. Ground spices lose their flavor and aroma within 6 months to a year when stored at room temperature, especially if they're exposed to light, heat, or air. I learned this lesson when I opened a container of chili powder I'd had for maybe 2 years, and it had absolutely no smell, no flavor. It was like red dust, useless. Whole spices last much longer than ground spices because the volatile oils that give spices their flavor are protected inside the whole seed. Peppercorn, or dried herb. Whole black peppercorns can last 3 to 4 years. Ground black pepper loses its punch in 6 months. Whole cumin seeds last years. Ground cumin is noticeably weaker after a year. The prepper solution here is simple. Store whole spices and invest in a cheap spice grinder or mortar and pestle. You can buy a whole peppercorns, cumin seeds, coriander seeds, mustard seeds. All of them last dramatically longer than their ground counterparts, and you grind them fresh when you need them. The flavor difference is night and day. If you're storing ground spices because that's what you're used to cooking with, buy them in small quantities. Keep them in airtight containers away from light and heat, and plan to rotate through them every 6 to 12 months. Don't buy those huge bulk containers of spices thinking they'll last forever because they won't. Better to buy small and restock often than to waste money on flavorless dust. Number 6, rolled oats and quick oats. This is the one that got me personally. The story I told you at the beginning. Oats contain oils in the germ, and while they're more stable than some of the other foods on this list, they still go rancid, especially if you store them in large containers that you open and reseal repeatedly. Steel-cut oats last the longest because they're less processed and the oils are more protected. Rolled oats last a decent amount of time, maybe a year to 2 years, in good storage conditions. Quick oats and instant oats, which are more processed and have more surface area exposed, can go rancid faster within 6 months to a year. The mistake I made was storing a huge 5-gallon bucket of rolled oats and then opening it to use them regularly. Every time I opened that bucket, I was exposing all the oats to oxygen and moisture. And even though I was eating them regularly, the oats went rancid before I could finish the bucket. 3/4 of a gallon went to waste. The solution is to store oats in smaller sealed portions. If you buy a big bucket, immediately divide it into gallon-size Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers and seal them individually. That way, when you open one bag, the rest of your supply stays protected. I now buy rolled oats in number 10 cans. Those are the coffee can-sized portions. And I can get through 1 can in a reasonable time without worrying about the rest spoiling. If you're storing oats for long term, keep them sealed in a cool, dark place and rotate through your stock. Oats are a fantastic prepper food. Cheap, nutritious, versatile, but they're not indestructible. Treat them with respect and they'll serve you well. Number 7, and this might be the most overlooked one on the whole list, nut butters and tahini. Peanut butter is a prepper staple. High in protein, high in calories, shelf-stable, or so we think. Commercial peanut butter with added stabilizers and hydrogenated oils can last a year or more unopened. Natural peanut butter, the kind that's just peanuts and maybe salt, goes rancid much faster, sometimes in just 3 to 6 months after opening, even in the fridge. Almond butter, cashew butter, tahini, all the natural nut and seed butters. They spoil even faster because they're pure ground nuts or seeds with all those vulnerable oils exposed. I've had tahini go rancid on me in the pantry in less than 3 months after opening. The oil separates, it starts to smell off, and the taste turns bitter. If you're storing nut butters for preparedness, stick with commercial peanut butter that has stabilizers. And even then, rotate through it and keep an eye on the expiration dates. If you prefer natural nut butters, keep them in the fridge after opening and plan to use them within a few months. For long-term storage, nut butters just aren't the best choice. They're too prone to rancidity. A better option for long-term protein and fat storage is to keep whole nuts in the freezer, like I mentioned earlier, or store canned meats, freeze-dried proteins, or even powdered peanut butter, which is defatted peanut powder that lasts much longer and can be reconstituted with water. So let's recap, because this is important. The 7 foods that spoil fast and cost preppers serious money are brown rice, nuts, and seeds, most cooking oils, whole grain flours, ground spices, rolled outs, and natural nut butters. Every single one of these contains oils or volatile compounds that break down over time, and if you store them wrong or for too long, you're throwing money in the trash. Here's the key principle I want you to take away from this. Store what lasts and supplement with what's fresh. White rice lasts 30 years. Brown rice doesn't. So store white rice and buy brown rice fresh when times are normal. White flour lasts years. Whole wheat flour doesn't. So store white flour and wheat berries and grind fresh when you need it. Coconut oil and ghee last years. Vegetable oil doesn't. So focus your long-term storage on the fats that won't betray you. This doesn't mean you can't have these foods in your preps. It means you need to be smart about it. Use cold storage for nuts and seeds. Keep oils in cool, dark places and rotate them regularly. Buy whole spices instead of ground. Portion out bulk grains into smaller sealed bags. And always label everything with dates so you know what needs to be rotated first. I learned these lessons the expensive way, and my goal is to help you avoid that. Every bucket of rancid oats, every bottle of spoiled oil, every bag of stale nuts I had to throw out taught me something. And now I'm passing that knowledge to you so you don't have to waste the same money I did. Before we wrap up, let me tell you what this looks like in practice at my house. I store white rice, white flour, and wheat berries in sealed 5-gallon buckets with oxygen absorbers for true long-term storage, and those will be there for my kids if they need them 20 years from now. I keep coconut oil and ghee in my pantry for cooking fats that won't go bad. I buy brown rice and whole wheat flour in small amounts and keep them in the freezer, and I rotate through them every few months. For nuts and seeds, I buy in bulk when there's a good sale, portion them immediately into freezer bags, and pull out 1 bag at a time. My spice cabinet has whole peppercorns, cumin seeds, coriander seeds, and a cheap electric spice grinder that takes 10 seconds to use. And I keep a written inventory of everything with purchase dates, so I know exactly what needs to be used first. This system didn't happen overnight. It took years of trial and error, but now I'm confident that when my family needs our food storage, it'll actually be edible. That peace of mind is worth every bit of effort. If you haven't grabbed that free guide yet, do it now. How to turn $50 into a 90-day food supply is waiting for you. The link is right below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. It's going to save you time, money, and a lot of frustration as you build out your preps. And if this video helped you avoid even one expensive food storage mistake, hit that like button so more people can find it. Drop a comment and let me know which of these 7 foods surprised you the most. Or tell me about a food storage mistake you've made so other people can learn from it. We're all in this together, and the more we share what works and what doesn't, the better prepared we all become. Subscribe to the channel if you want more practical, non-nonsense prepping advice. And click that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. I post new content every week covering everything from food storage to emergency planning to the mindset that actually keeps you calm when things go sideways. Remember, Preparedness isn't about fear, it's about peace of mind. These small choices you make every day, how you store your food, how you manage your money, how carefully you plan, are the same habits that shape your peace of mind in every area of life. When we ignore the details, we pay for it later. When we act with wisdom and discipline, we protect the people we love. Let this be a reminder that security is built quietly through consistent action, not panic. If this message spoke to you, take a moment right now to like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment about one lesson you learned, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss practical guidance that could one day make all the difference. Stay calm, stay prepared, and keep building a life rooted in wisdom and strength.